Thank you so much, Wendy. And Christy, if you want to go to the next slide, and I think it's going to be your slide. Yes. So this is Christy. He is one of our data analysts, and he's going to be doing today's presentation. There will be an opportunity later on where we're going to go into a breakout room. So I ask that everyone stays at their computer and pays attention for the course of the presentation. And then again, just a reminder to please stay on mute.
Good morning, everyone. I am the data specialist here at Amity. I oversee most of the data here at for TPA, and I kind of wanted to go over like outcomes because we really wanted to see more outcomes coming out from the organizations here at TPA. Kind of wanted to really first explain what outcomes are. They're really just results or changes from your actions. I really just kind of think of them as like milestones that your students are, excuse me, milestones that your students are taking in, and it's to really just to show progress and success. It's really important not to just only focus on services, but also your outcomes as well, because they really help paint a full picture of a successful student. Someone who takes advantage of the opportunity to receive your services from beginning to end is someone who you really want to showcase. Outcomes are important mostly because they help measure success, as I said before, right? They help you keep focused on what's important, and they really show whether or not your goals are being achieved. They paint a really clear picture of those end goals of your students. Outcomes also are what students and stakeholders really care about. It shows that their needs are being met. And yes, you can tell that story through services, but you really want to show that end goal with your outcomes. The real question now becomes, how do you measure outcomes? Because outcomes can be a little tricky to wrap your head around. So I like to give examples of outcomes such as those who get into university, or people who have graduated high school, graduated college, or gotten into a job program. These kind of outcomes should be shown through the services, but that outcome is that last kind of milestone, that last step. Outcomes can be different for your organization, so it's really important to know what kind of outcomes you should expect from your organization. It's important to set goals that are clear and easy to measure, and to use your data, your services, to check that progress to make sure that there's a story behind those outcomes. So other examples of outcomes, other than the kind of educational ones that I had spoken about, there are vocation, for instance, lesson service that are really focused on employment or job training, such as forklift training. The outcome would be a vocational school enrollment. So you get enrolled, so that student becomes involved in vocational school. Alternatively, for employment, right? Same kind of services, right? Same type of services where they're going to your organization for forklift training. They then become fully employed. The employment placement would be another great outcome. For housing, housing services such as housing resources or creating some sort of housing application can be demonstrated within an outcome through housing placements with emergency shelter or ground market rate. Now kind of comes the importance of how do you correctly log outcomes. Like, as I said before, outcomes kind of have to tell a story with the services. So we also require that outcomes directly pertain to the services that have been provided. Outcomes must happen also outcomes must happen after services that have been logged. So for instance, we see this example down here. In here, this should be very familiar to you guys. It's just the folder of a example student. As you can see, the student has one service, employment or job training, and that their outcome is an education placement. So that kind of falls in line with the example that we did before, where a student had done some sort of employment training with their services, and now they have some sort of milestone that they've created that has happened because of their outcome. Also notice that the service happened in April 21st, 2025, and the outcome happened 2 months later. So it's not that the outcome is happening before that service, the outcome is happening after that service. Here's an example of an incorrectly logged outcome. Notice how when the service is happening in 2025, but the outcome happens in 2024. This is a problem that we do kind of see quite often where an outcome is incorrectly logged. Sometimes it may be a misinput. Sometimes it may be a fundamental misunderstanding of what an outcome is. Either way, make sure that your outcomes are happening after your services. Also notice here that the service name here is mentoring, but that doesn't necessarily directly pertain to the outcome here of housing placement. Notice how I'm very clear about direct. The services have to directly pertain to the outcome that happens. Um, Again, as I said before, outcomes must be used to obtain additional funding. That's the reason why outcomes are in funders are likely to invest in organizations that can clearly demonstrate how their funds will lead to some sort of positive, meaningful outcome. So yes, you can tell these stories through using your services, but the outcomes again are another great way of showing that support. For right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show a couple other examples regarding perhaps correct or incorrect outcomes. I'll give around 10 to 15 seconds to kind of for yourself to kind of brainstorm about what is shown is either correct or incorrect, and then also kind of brainstorm why it's correct or why it's incorrect. So I'll give around 15 seconds for this first slide. And if anyone wants to jump in and unmute and tell me what's wrong or correct about this slide, please feel free to unmute.
It looks like it's incorrect because of the outcome achieved in the service name.
Yeah, so that's basically correct, right? This outcome is incorrect because the student had received some sort of education placement immediately after intake. The education placement does not directly pertain to some sort of intake service. So exactly correct. Thank you. Moving on to this next example. Here, this is an example of a service that was created and also an outcome that was also created. This time not in the folder, but actually through the service and outcome itself. Can anyone kind of unmute and let me know whether or not this is correct or incorrect and why so?
Is this one because the service status says in progress instead of complete, even though it's the same day that it was done, the outcome is there? The service
Yeah.
status.
Not only that, if you notice also the year,
The date.
yes, the date of service had happened in 2025 and the outcome had happened in 2024. So while you can typically you can have like emergency shelters right after the housing application, the outcome was logged incorrectly the year before. Moving on to this next example, this one is all about the folder itself. Is this possibly correct or incorrect? This one's a bit hard.
This is incorrect.
It's missing in an enrollment form.
Yeah, this
And
one's
program
missing enrollment form,
services.
Exactly.
And program services.
Yeah. So the reason why I wanted to highlight this example is yes, there is no program enrollment, and yes, there is no service. And while those are problems, the biggest problem is the fact that there is an outcome, but there is no service. Remember that I had said that the services have to directly pertain to those outcomes that we're creating. If you have no services, there are no outcomes to be made. So we have to make sure that we have outcomes before we have any sort of services. We have another example here. This example highlights the folder and also the outcome itself.
It's too far ahead.
Yeah, we're not even in 2026.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So the outcome is incorrect because the year is in 2026. We're not even in that year yet. So while the date of service, all the services and the outcomes show a great story, it shows that the student had wanted some sort of family reunification, and they got that towards the end. the March 1st, 2026 has not happened yet. So there's probably some sort of error regarding the record date. Finally, we have one more example. This one also may be a bit tricky.
Would it be the time spent?
Well, actually, the time spent here is totally fine. And in fact, we're trying to look at the outcomes themselves. So this again, I said this one is tricky because there's actually nothing wrong in this case. We can have services without any sort of outcome as long as it pertains to your as long as that makes sense for your organization. I think now we're going to go into breakout rooms. I know we're a bit, I know it's a bit quick, but Ariel, do you want to take it away?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Great job interacting. It sounds like you all are really grasping it, which is great. So we're going to break out into breakout rooms of about 7 to 8 participants each room. And we might give a little more time than 10 minutes. I think we're a little ahead of schedule, Christy, is that right? So I might give like 12 minutes. And the ask is that you briefly share with the group what type of services you provide. We don't have to dig deep into the individual services, but what type of services you're capturing in Apricot. And then either share what outcomes you're currently capturing as they relate to your services. And if you're not currently capturing outcomes, utilize the breakout group to brainstorm what type of outcomes you could be capturing moving forward. Other organizations might be doing similar work to you and have some ideas of outcomes you could capture. So I'm going to open the breakout room shortly. Please be prepared to have someone share back to the larger group, but we're going to have a lot of breakout rooms. And so not everyone's going to get the chance to share, but if you'd like to share, you learned something in your group, we'd love to hear about it. So I'm going to start the groups. Everyone should get a pop-up on their screen. Just click join for your breakout room. And then I'll call everyone back in about 12 minutes. I'll try to give a 2-minute warning. If you're just joining us, we are all in breakout rooms. So everyone should be assigned now. If you can join your breakout group and share based on what's on the screen here, you're either going to share, you're going to share what type of services your organization provides and either what outcomes you're currently capturing in Apricot. And if you're not currently capturing outcomes, brainstorm with the group what type of outcomes you can begin capturing moving forward. See, we have someone asking, one of the breakout rooms asking for help. So I'm going to join the breakout group. If you could just admit anyone who joins. Hi, everyone. I got a notification that you all were asking for help.
Yes, I was saying, how can we capture someone coming to take a shower or getting like a laundry service? What kind of outcome could we use for that?
Great question. I think it'd be best if we answer to the larger group because I think a lot of people are going to have that question. But a quick answer is not every service is going to have an outcome. And so that is probably not something we would capture in an outcome necessarily. But please ask that when we join in the larger group for question and answer, and Christy, the data specialist, can help answer a little more in depth.
Okay.
And drive safely, please.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
How's your new job?
It's good, thank you. It's good. What a coincidence that I joined the group that two of my old orgs were in. It's good. I'm enjoying it.
That's good.
Thank you, thank you.
See you, Ariel.
Hi, Tamika.
We're missing you, but everything's great though.
Good. I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy to hear that.
Okay.
I'm gonna join back into the larger group, but please remember to ask that question.
Okay.
I'm back. Yes, I will assign the breakout room. One should be assigned now. There's a couple that need to be admitted. Just gonna wait until everyone joins back from the breakout rooms. We're just wrapping up conversation, and then we will share back to the larger group.
The grandson of the legendary mom. That's the romper jumpsuit thing that you're supposed to put it on and it's supposed to make you look skinny.
Just gonna ask that everybody mutes themselves, please.
Recording in progress.
Victor Mendoza.
Virginia, can you reach out to me and I will communicate with you? We got cut off.
Can I have your email, please?
Hi, everyone. I think everyone's back in the larger group now. I'm just going to ask everybody mute themselves to avoid any background noise. And then we'll take an opportunity for whoever wants to share. I don't think we'll get a chance for someone to share from every group, but does anyone have anything they want to share either about what services they provide and what outcomes they capture, or if you were able to brainstorm with your group, what outcomes you will be capturing now? Feel free to unmute and share.
We have Victor in our group, Victor Mendoza of Fufu. I put him on the spot. Go, Victor.
Yeah. Thank you, Wendy.
You're welcome.
No, thank you. It's always great to share. Yeah, it was I thought our session was really well because the people that got to speak, we spoke about the services we provided. And then other people jumped in and suggested what outcomes could be captured within those services. And I think that's kind of one of the main things is just kind of really understanding, okay, the services, how was mentioned earlier, your outcomes need to reflect the services that you provide, right? So once people gave a description of their job and the services they provide, a couple of us jumped in and suggested what outcomes they can be showing in Apricot. So I thought we worked really well as a team, and I think just kind of reminded each one of us to really build that relationship and keep that good relationship with the supportive group that Amity provides. You know, your advocate, and just to really fine tune, especially when it comes to like milestones and outcomes, because there could be a bit of a difference there. So yeah, I thought we were really supportive of each other. So thank you.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you, Wendy. That's great insight. Anyone else want to unmute and share? Yeah, Yasmin, go for it.
So we had about 5 of us who had an opportunity to share, and the outcomes, two people, we actually helped them brainstorm a little bit more about how they could maybe perhaps improve their outcomes. So Mariana, for example, one of the things her nonprofit does is she helps students improve their grades. Their grades go up as an outcome. The grades have improved, she said. But we were talking about her drilling down and getting a little bit more specific. So let's say, for example, the student had a D in algebra, and now the student has a passing grade. So you would want an outcome that's a little bit more specific. You wouldn't just want to say grades have improved. The funder would want to know a little bit more about that. So just teasing out, exactly what happened with that student. And then one of the nonprofits, they have speakers at lunch for 30 minutes. And these speakers come in and they speak about careers and how these men got there. So they monitor young men in grades 9 through 12. And so one of the things that we talked about is the fact that the nonprofit only put in one outcome for a student who they wait until the student graduates and they go to college and the student is going to Virginia Tech. But we suggested that maybe one of the things they could do is they could capture how the students felt about the career speakers and whether or not that influenced the student to maybe major in that specific topic, So that could be another way to capture some outcomes.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. That's great. I'm happy to hear that you all were able to support each other in that way. Seeds of Peace, go ahead and unmute.
I wrote some notes down, so I'm just gonna read like the notes. I personally appreciated hearing examples of tangible outcomes that maybe we are doing but really haven't captured. And so these are some really useful tips that I learned from my team here. So mental health outcomes, reductions in certain behaviors. Thank you, Seed House. I personally, we do a lot of mental health community-based work. I think a lot of us do, but since we're not like LCSWs, therapists, or psychiatrists, I was just curious, like, how do we best capture that? And so, I think the example of identifying behaviors and the reductions of behaviors like anxiety or different mental health conditions, I thought that was great. I appreciate that feedback, and maybe we could all use it. Another really, I thought this was great feedback was in how to improve like communication amongst family. And so someone from, I think, Jason Betts shared that they have like family game nights and family dinners. And so they don't maybe do a formal assessment, but they do like visual assessments to gauge the improvement of communication of the youth in their family, which I think is really beautiful. I like that example. Another example that LA Casa Youth Build, they shared that, I mean, everybody shared great examples. These are things I'm learning.
No, just click.
So Casa Youth Build shared that they track their literacy through a testing program called CYSA, which is not unique to their organization, but like a tool you could access online. So that was pretty cool because I didn't know about that, but also it reminds me that there are tools online, like assessment tools that maybe I didn't even think about on my radar to track like whether it's literacy, mental health, maybe these assessments exist. So those are just a couple examples, like tangible examples that I learned from our team, and I appreciate the time and opportunity.
Thank you. And Mitra, I saw you dropped a question in the chat and then your hand's up. Go ahead and unmute. You're muted, Mitra.
Sorry, I was just talking. Thanks, Seeds of Peace, for sharing. We're an arts organization, and so we do a lot of community mental health work too. So that's helpful. The outcomes that you mentioned. I was just wondering, in the like the student outcomes, like what is that called? Like what you mentioned, the reduction of behavior outcome, because I don't see that.
Yeah, thanks for that question. Chrissy, do you want to jump in and answer that?
Yeah, so if you guys don't really see an outcome that you guys would like to add in to Apricot, if you guys don't like see that drop down, you can send us an email or go through your grant advocate and ask, hey, I want to add this outcome, or I have this sort of outcome. Is there a way that I can add this into Apricot? And they will go ahead and the grant advocate, or if you do just send a message to the help desk, we would go ahead and we would take that into consideration and determine whether or not we will add that outcome or not into Apricot.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Mitra. Joel, go ahead and unmute.
Hi, I have more of a question than a comment, although our group, I think we're group 18, shared. I mean, some of our outcomes seem to be pretty straightforward. And sorry, again, this is Joe Garcia, Director of Mentally Project. So this is the first time I'm hearing that the drop-down menu with the options for the outcomes is something that we can add to, because we've asked before, what can we do about that? Because most of what we do doesn't necessarily align with what's available in the drop-down menu. So in the outcomes that we write up, we'll explain in there what the outcome is and how it correlates to, say, for example, culmination, right, or school or something like that. So my question is, what is the relationship between those outcomes that we submit, the ones that we actually write up ourselves, and the drop-down menu? Because for us, one thing that we've experienced is that most of our work gets misconstrued because they don't align with what I think the county is looking at in regards to those outcomes, right? So we're saying we're it's an outcome for a culmination of what the county is rating as like a training program or education, high school, whatever. That's not necessarily what we're focusing on. And so our outcomes aren't necessarily going to really align with that drop down menu. So what can we do to effectively change that? Because it's been an issue for us.
I think you might be referring to the outcomes that are listed on correlated with the milestones. Is that the ones you're talking about that you all write up?
I guess, yeah. I mean, we have to kind of over explain in both situations.
So these are two separate, that we both use the word outcome on both of them, but those are two separate things. So the outcomes connected to the milestones are really to see kind of the overall impact of your program and the overall impact of the milestones that you're hitting. And then these outcomes are really specific to specific students. And so if you feel like the drop-down menu isn't something that is not capturing what you all are doing, you can have a discussion with the help desk to see if we can add something in. I do want to note that not every service has an outcome. And so there might be something that is not measurable and cannot be added to the drop-down menu. And so it's going to depend. It might be worth setting up a call with Christy and Rudy, our director of data, to kind of discuss your program details and specifics and see what we can add, if we can add something that fits your program needs.
Great, because they came up multiple times during our breakout session. So I think it's
And
something that a lot of folks are experiencing. And if right now the county is trying not to refund all these organizations, then that data is going to be super important that it gets delivered to the county in the best possible way.
something that I also wanted to add on, sometimes like there are like Gary said, there will be services that don't necessarily will pertain directly, right? We look at kind of organizational, like we look at every single organization and work like basis to basis. So it's not like this is supposed to be all organizations have to have some sort of outcome. It's really like another way. This is like another tool for you guys to use to express the successful like milestones that have been created from your services for each of your students. It's another way to tell a great story for you guys. It's another avenue for you guys to kind of really just express the services that you guys are providing. Emily?
Did we lose them?
No, I think she was unmuted. Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Hi. I had a question. So we're the Common Good LA. We do education support for 18 to 24-year-olds. We had kind of two different answers regarding a question that we had a little while ago. We work with, so our question was, when somebody completes a class, if they're enrolled at Mount SAC, which is one of our local colleges here in Pomona, when they complete a class, can that be logged as an outcome? Or because a lot of our outcomes, since we're education focused specifically, they might have their education placement when they enroll in Mount SAC, but it could be 2 years later where then we're getting another outcome of graduation. So are we able to, so we got a yes and we got a no. Are we able to log an outcome of completed classes, or is it just when they enroll and when they graduate?
I think I have a follow-up question, Emily. Are you all help with them along their journey in college, like offering services throughout the time they're in school as well?
Yeah, so a lot of them, they'll come and they'll set up here and work on their homework. We have somebody who helps tutor them through their classes if they're struggling. And then we take them to their counseling sessions, their FAFSA appointments. We take them to Citrus and Mount SAC. So we're helping them along the way. We do weekly check-ins, sometimes multiple times a week check-ins, to make sure that they're still on track. But
some of them are here daily because they're using our computers for tech support, and they're using our Wi-Fi because they don't have access to it at home. So our outcomes can be 2 years later if they start an associate's program. So I don't know if not having an outcome really tracks with the work that we're doing here.
So
Christy, you can jump in.
So I would be inclined to say yes. Would you be able to add that in as an outcome? I will have to talk to the director of data about that, Rudy. But from what I'm like hearing, yes, it should be added in as an outcome. Is me?
Could I add something? I worked at a community college, and if I were you guys, I would think about the fact that along the journey to get to the associate's degree, you complete 15 units, 30 units, 45 units, then 60 units. So there's 4 opportunities for counselors to check in, and I think each of those should be an outcome.
That's a great point. Thank you.
Is this is Mary Sutton Collective Remake. Is there a space to put qualitative statements? And does that like when people do a participatory evaluation and talk about what they got out of the program or what it's done for them, is there a space to put those kind of comments and outcomes?
Ariel, if you want to jump in, and then I will add on towards the end.
I think, and Christy, you might be the best person to answer this. I think the best place to capture that would be in your success stories and your quarterly reports. I think the quarterly or the outcomes that we're talking about today, we really want to make sure that there's a way to measure those. So if you're talking about an increase in, let's say, confidence, we want to make sure that you have a survey that you're doing at the beginning and a survey that you're doing at the end to show that increase. And so if it's kind of like a anecdote, I would rather you share that as a success story. And we want to capture that too. That's another great way to really tell the story of what your organization is doing.
And not only that, I would also like to add that we would like to see outcomes as kind of more so on the tangible side. So that really means like if you do have some sort of outcome that is currently not being captured and it's a bit more less tangible, you can make that tangible by, for instance, creating some sort of certificate that shows some sort of completion or that shows some sort of great leap forward for your organization or for that student.
Daryl, I think you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. I may be answering my own question. Now, I provide mentorship as well as training, job placement, job training, and stuff like that. And I also provide them with personal protective equipment like steel toe boots, hard hat, safety glasses, and safety gloves so they can start work or apprenticeship. So some of my outcomes have been they did receive the steel toe boots and all that stuff like that. I even take pictures with the people and all that. And one person recently was able to join a firefighter school. So I'm hoping I may be answering my own questions. That's good outcomes to put down that, you know, they receive PPE to get to go to work or training, plus the person started the firefighter academy thing. So I'm going to guess that's okay.
It sounds like the providing supplies, work supplies would be services, and then them getting that job would be an outcome. Absolutely.
Okay, and also joining the school, because that firefighter school is like a special school.
Yeah, sorry, school. Yes, I said job, I meant school. Yeah.
Some of them started a job too. Some of them started a job.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. Sure.
I'm gonna
Thank God.
quickly jump to.
Yes, because they had it itemized, but you got to look at it and like, okay, this falls like here. Okay, just like you explained it in there. You got to make sure it's in there. You just got to pick wisely what you put down. What aligns, just me thinking out loud. What aligns with your services best you can, because it's in there. You're just like, okay, I'm doing mentorship to training. Okay, I'm starting off with assessment. I start off with assessment because I need to see what they need because I can't read their minds. I gotta ask them. So then I pick from the categories, and then I go from there. So thank you. I'm glad I had that in my mind. Right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Daryl. I'm going to jump to some questions we got in the chat throughout the course. The first question that we got was how often, and Chris, this is for you, how often should we be logging outcomes? Is it preferred to log outcomes maybe once every grant milestone period?
Really, like it just depends on what works for your organization. If you have, for instance, outcomes that you want to capture instantly right when that student gets that outcome, go ahead and please do that. If there are, for instance, outcomes that you're logging in along with the program services, then yes, please do that as well. Whatever really works for you, please go ahead and just add those milestones, sorry, those outcomes in. I do know, and Ariel, please let me know if it's incorrect. We will start checking in regarding outcomes with the grant advocates. Meaning the grant advocates are going to start asking questions regarding, oh, are there any outcomes that you want to capture? Why are you not receiving? Why is there no more outcomes? Sorry, why is there no outcomes for this month?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you, Christy. Okay, the next question we had was, what does the advocacy success outcome mean? Christy, do you want to take that one? I can answer it too.
I can, yeah, I'm like,
okay.
which,
Did you want some, so the clarity, I'm sorry, that was me. I asked the
Oh
question.
yeah, go ahead, Kara.
Hey. So the question in the advocacy success was like, what did that cover? Did that cover, like the gentleman said, about buying those shoes and all that stuff, like you're advocating for them or getting them enrolled or taking them to see a counselor? What does that umbrella, that title cover?
My understanding of this one is it might come more into play when we talk about organizations that are doing like expungement services or legal services where they're kind of advocating on their behalf. I would think of it that way. I think there might be another one that's like successful referral. Or is that right, Christy, in the drop down?
I believe so, yes.
And really like identifying what is a service. So when we're providing them supplies, that's going to be a service. And then what comes of them getting supplies, that would be the outcome. And so knowing that the advocacy is more if you're advocating on their behalf for something.
For like more of a legal space?
Yeah, it might come in handy more of a legal space. For your program specifically with education, there might not be, and not every organization is going to hit every outcome. Not every student is going to have an outcome. It just depends.
So, in that regard, like if it doesn't meet those, because we don't have kids are not completing certificates every time. Can we write the narrative? But do you have to check a box? I think it feels like you have to check a box as well. Is that making sense in the outcome section? And then it gives you space to like do a narrative.
Yeah. So when you input an outcome, there's always going to be the option to add an outcome note. That's always going to be a part of it.
But
if a student's not completing the program, then you would put that on their enrollment form. When you unenroll them from the program, then it'll ask you what was the reason they left the program, and you can put that there.
No, I'm saying if in the outcome space, if none of those boxes checked, but maybe they did some outcome, is efficient to write in the narrative space without having checked a box, or is that not possible?
So that's when you would reach out to the help desk or your grant advocate to get the drop-down option added.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think we have a hand up. Felicia.
Yeah. Are we going to be implementing this moving forward? Because I'm realizing there's a few outcomes that we could have caught that we may have not. So would we be able to go back and add those outcomes, or do you guys just want us to focus on from this day on?
I would say focus on this day on, and if you do have the capacity to add new outcomes from before, then please go ahead and do so.
Jonathan, go ahead.
This may be a question for our advocate, but maybe you guys can help me out. So we provide supportive housing for formerly incarcerated individuals and people that suffer from substance abuse. So as of now, we've been logging services as far as like some of our groups that are facilitated here, such as like relapse prevention, recovery 101. Our whole aim is to get them from previously incarcerated to recovery, and then from recovery to a job. I just want to make sure that we're not off base logging or like inputting data as far as like pretty much support groups. I just want to make sure that I'm not off base by doing that.
I think we've met before about this. As long as it's being provided under the grant, you're not off base on capturing it. So if that's being funded by the grant, absolutely want to see those services. They have to be captured in APRCOP.
And then an outcome would be them. I actually got some really good input from the group that I was in. They're suggesting that we do so after like 90 days, that's when our participants would be able to work. Would that be like a potential outcome? Like they make it to our 90-day mark and then now they're pretty much ready to enter the workforce?
I would say more so when they do get that job from the workforce, that would be an outcome instead.
Okay. Alrighty. Thank you guys.
Thank you. And I know we had some questions about specific brainstorming.
Yes.
I know that our time is we're kind of running out of time here. But I do want to say that I will follow up and have conversations with the grant advocates, and we can schedule times to meet either with the data team or with me to brainstorm some specific ideas for your organizations for those of you who drop those in the chat. I want to make sure we have enough time to spend talking about those. And I also want to say that our team is here. If you ever have a question and you're not sure what type of outcomes, this is something different for your organization. We're here to support you and brainstorm with you. And so please reach out to your grant advocate, and they can either schedule time with the data team or with me or with our leadership team to brainstorm. I'm just going through to make sure. Okay, we had a question. Oh, go ahead, Carol.
And also I want to remind everyone that we are meeting again at 2:00 if you want to join again. If you need more clarification or if some questions come up that you need answers to, please feel free to join us at 2:00.
Thank you, Carol. Then the other question we got in the chat was how long before the 15 credit, 30 credit, et cetera, and the classes completed outcome will be added? Our program is also education based and would like to add this as an outcome. Christy, is that something you can answer?
So can I get a bit more clarification?
So earlier, Emily asked about the community college that the community college work, and someone recommended kind of capturing an outcome as they hit milestones throughout their education. Is that something we can add in there?
Probably so. Again, I would probably have to talk to the director of data about that. But I would imagine yes. Obviously, right? Like I think the best way to go about these is for you guys kind of brainstorm what you would like to add as an outcome, and then send a ticket to the help desk, or preferably talk to your grant advocate about it, so that you can get that information, and then the grant advocate will probably. Sorry,
Christy, it was just somebody who was unmuted. Thank you. And then, is it appropriate for an outcome to be youth being promoted from one martial arts belt to the next placement in a martial arts tournament? That one sounds like, and I think maybe there was a follow-up to that. Does the outcome have to correspond to a particular service provision? So for the first question, there is an outcome in their certificate of completion. So if they're completing one level of the martial arts classes, then that would be a certificate of completion. Placement. Oh, go ahead.
That also goes back to Jonathan's question. If they're completing a workshop or some type of group session, that's also a completion.
And then does the outcome have to correspond to a particular service provision? I'm so sorry. It doesn't have to correlate to one specific service, but we do want to see that the services input correspond with the outcome. We want to make sure that it tells a story. So if we see education, but then the outcome is, that's not a good example. If we see basic necessities, but the outcome is education, then that's not telling a story of how we got to the outcome. So we want to make sure that everything makes sense and the puzzle kind of fits together.
Yeah, and just to add on that really quickly, the services that you guys are providing are within the context of the grant. And so by extension, because the outcomes are a product of the services, the outcomes also have to be within the context of the grant as well.
We got another question. I noticed obtaining vital documents can be documented as a service. Can it not be an outcome as well once it's received?
Probably not, simply because that is, I would say it's we want like more of like a bigger milestone, or rather like that seems to us more so as a service. Please still like send us a email and kind of detail the steps that you do to get to that point and why it should be an outcome, and then we'll go ahead and take that into consideration.
And then this will be the last question we take today. And again, please reach out to directly to me or your advocate or the data team, the help desk with more questions that you might have, or feel free to join the 2 p.m. session. Oh, I lost the question. I think we answered. Oh, I think we answered this one already. So if we offer sports and education, how do we differentiate outcomes between each service type? ... using the notes. So how do we differentiate between services and outcomes?
So again, right, like the outcome is the culmination of the service that you're providing. So it's this sort of goal that has been set from the outcomes. If you are having trouble figuring out what should be an outcome, what should be a service, kind of talk to your brand advocate and see, okay, does this pertain more to the service that I'm providing, or is this more so like a goal that we have set and that we have reached?
Okay, this is Sabria. Can you hear me? And is it okay for me to speak?
Absolutely.
Yes, in clarification of my question, I was wondering if, okay, we do some tutorial and we do mostly sports. And so the outcomes, if I have a student and she's in the sports program and she's doing the tutorial program, when I do an outcome, right, how do I specify that outcome is for tutorial versus martial arts, for example? Would I just do that in the notes section of the outcomes?
Yeah, so your question basically asks, what kind of outcomes, how do I differentiate in Apricot the outcomes that pertain for this one type of service, and how do I differentiate between this other type of service?
Exactly.
Yes, it would really just be, I mean, we can see the story from the kind of drop downs, like for instance, if you were regarding your services, right? We would kind of be able to see the different types of outcomes that pertain to one kind of service and the different types of outcomes that pertain to another kind of service. Please do also write down in the service notes what the kind of outcomes come from, because that's also a great way of you kind of telling your story as well.
Okay. So you mean in the outcomes notes, I would write down, this student completed their martial arts stuff, or this student graduated from her class, whatever it might be.
That would be correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any sort of context that you want to add, please do so in your service, in your service notes or in your outcome notes. This is me.
Christy, I don't know if this would be helpful, but somebody asked a question about like trying to distinguish between service and outcome. And I don't know if this makes sense, but to me, service is input and then outcome is output. So the service, for example, could be hours of tutoring, and then the outcome is output. They pass their algebra class, something like that.
Yep, thank you for that. That's exactly correct. It would be some sort of input. And then the outcomes is the culmination of those inputs to create some sort of goal that you have like done.
Thank you, everyone. We are 2 minutes over, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you so much for joining. Again, we'll have another session today at 2 p.m. if you have any additional questions, and we appreciate all of you joining today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a nice
Thank you.
day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Is there a survey for the end or no?
One will be sent out via email. Thank you. Good question.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.